Chapter 11, Transport in Plants. Have you ever wondered how water reaches the top of tall tree, or for that matter, how and why substances move from one cell to other, whether all substances move in a similar way in the same direction, and whether metabolic energy is required for moving substances? Plants need to move molecule over very long distances, much more than animals do. They also do not have a circulatory system in place. Water taken up by the roots has to reach all part of all the plant, up to the very tip of the growing stem. The photosynthesis or food synthesized by the leaves have also to be moved to all parts including the root tip embedded deep inside the soil. Movement across short distances, say within the cell across the membrane and from cell to cell within the tissue has also to take place. To understand some of the transport processes that take place in plant, one would have to recollect one's basic knowledge about the structure of the cell and the anatomy of the plant body. We also need to revisit our understanding of diffusion. Besides gaining some knowledge about chemical potential and ions, when we talk of the movement of substances, we need first to define what kind of movement we are talking about and also what substances we are looking at. In a flowering plant, the substances that would need to be transported are water, mineral nutrition, organic nutrition, and plant growth regulators. Over small distances, substances move by diffusion and by cytoplasmic streaming, supplemented by active transport. Transport over longer distances proceed through the vascular system, the xylem and the phloem, and is called translocation. An important aspect that needs to be considered is the direction of transport. In rooted plants, transport in xylem of water and minerals is essentially unidirectional from root to the system. Organic and minerals nutrition, however, undergoes multidirectional transport. Organic compounds synthesized in the photosynthetic leaf are exported to all other parts of the plant including storage organs. From the storage organs they are later re-exported. The mineral nutrition are taken up by the roots and direct transported upward into the stem, leaf and the growing region. When any plant part undergoes senescence, nutrition may be withdrawn from such region and moved to the growing part. Hormones or plant growth regulators and other chemical stimuli are also transported through in very small amounts, sometimes in a strictly polarized and unidirectional manner from where they are synthesized to other parts. Hence, in a flowering plant, there is a complex traffic of compound but probably very orderly, moving in different directions, each organ receiving some substances and giving out some others. 11.1 Means of transport. 11.1.1 Diffusion. Movement by diffusion is passive and may be from one part of the cell to the other, or from cell to cell, or over short distances, say from the intercellular spaces of the leaf to the outside. No energy expenditure takes place. In diffusion, molecules move in the random fashion, the net result being substances moving from region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration. Diffusion is a slow process and is not dependent on a living system. Diffusion is obvious in gaseous and liquids, but diffusion in solid rather than of solid is more likely. Diffusion is very important to plants since it is the only means for gaseous movement within the plant body. Diffusion rates are affected by the gradient of concentration, the permeability of the membrane, separating them, temperature and pressure. 11.1.2 Facilitated diffusion. As pointed out earlier, a gradient must already be present for diffusion to occur. The diffusion rate depends on the size of the substances. Obviously, smaller substances diffuse faster. The diffusion of any substances across a smaller substances diffuse faster. The diffusion of any substances across a membrane also depends on its solubility in lipids. The major constituent of the membrane, substances soluble in lipid diffuse through the membrane to membrane. Substances soluble in lipid diffuse through the membrane faster. Substances that have a hydrophilic moiety find it difficult to pass through the membrane. Their movement has to be facilitated. Membrane protein provides sites at which such molecules cross the membrane. They do not set up a concentration gradient. A concentration gradient must already be present for molecule to diffuse even if facilitated by the proteins. This process is called facilitated diffusion. In facilitated diffusion, special protein help move substances across membrane without expenditure of ATP energy. Facilitated diffusion cannot cause net transport of molecules from a low to high concentration. This would require input of energy. Transport rate reach a maximum when all of the protein transporters are being used. Saturation. Facilitated diffusion is very specific. It also sells to select substances for uptake. It is sensitive to inhibitors which react with protein side chain. The protein form channels in the membrane for molecule to pass through. Some channels are always open, others can be controlled. Some are large, allowing a variety of molecules to cross. The porins are proteins that forge pores in the outer membrane of the plastid, mitochondria and some bacteria, allowing molecules up to the size of small protein to the pass through. Figure 11.1 show an extracellular molecule bound to the transport protein. The transport protein then rotates and release the molecules inside the cell. Example, water channels made up of 8 different types of aquaporin. 11.1.2.1 Passive support and antipodes. Some carrier of transport protein allow diffusion only if two types of molecules move together. In a sympod, both molecules cross the membrane in the same direction. In an antipode, they move in opposite direction. When a molecule moves across a membrane independent of other molecules, the process is called unipode. 11.1.3 Active transport. Active transport uses energy to pump molecules against a concentration gradient. Active transport is carried out by membrane proteins. Hence, different proteins in the membrane play a major role in both active as well as passive transport. Pumps are proteins that use energy to carry substances across to the cell membrane. These pumps can transport substances from a low concentration to a high concentration uphill transport. Transport rate reach a maximum when all the protein transporters are being used are saturated. Like enzyme, the carrier protein is very specific in what it carries across the membrane. These proteins are sensitive to inhibitors that react with protein side chains. 11.1.4 Comparison of different transport processes. Table 11.1 give a comparison of the different transport mechanisms. Protein in the membrane are responsible for facilitated diffusion and active transport and hence show common characters of being highly selective. They are liable to saturate, respond to inhibitors and are under hormonal regulation, but diffusion whether facilitated or not take place only along a gradient and do not use energy.